It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 310. Tonight I'm joined by Emo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hi.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Howdy.
Tam.
Hello.
And Phelan.
Hello.
Hey guys, I came real close to reading my own name.
Then it wouldn't have been us messing up the intro.
Yeah, it would just been me. It'd been me.
I mean, you're here.
I am here. But like, that's just kind of assumed. Belghast! So, yeah, we didn't have a show last week because of my poor planning, and it was my wedding anniversary, so, yeah, we decided just to skip. Everybody seemed to be fine with mostly skipping, so, sorry you didn't get a show last week.
I mean, I would not have been able to be on that show anyways, because I was in the middle of GenCon Online.
It's true. Which segues neatly into our first topic.
Segue! Cha-cha-cha. Yeah, so GenCon is a convention in which about 70,000 people meet in a 4-city block radius, and that was obviously not happening this year. And so instead they did GenCon Online, which they used their existing event system so that you could sign up for events that almost exclusively happened either on Discord, Zoom, Roll20, or Tabletop Simulator, or a combination of those things. I managed to I played 3 different Pathfinder Society games. I haven't played Pathfinder Society since 2nd edition came out. It's their living world games where you spin up a character and story happens. I actually got to do one of the more recent story-focused missions, and it was very cool. Like, learn some stuff that I think isn't general knowledge about Galarian through the Pathfinder Society, which is the kind of stuff that I want to see a living campaign do. Like it had us exploring the ancient Cyclopean ruins and sort of discovering the truths to new secrets behind what's happened in the world's past. But I don't know how great the Pathfinder Society modules are for conventions. Almost all of the modules I signed up for either had to get the content cut down by GMs or ran like an hour or 2 long. And these were things slotted for 5 hours, so they went very long.
Oof.
Yeah. I think there is some things where we understand how long a game at a table will run, but there is an inefficiency to being in a virtual table that you have to be able to account for.
Ask me how
about
Roll20.
I'm sure you could talk about this, but like trying to do a game that normally lasts 5 hours or even 4 hours in Roll20 in a 5-hour window is not really realistic.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's one of those things where, I mean, it's a thing that people see in the games that I run, but when you're playing a game in person, you can just throw down a grid and throw down some minis and have an encounter, and it's like 30 seconds of setup.
Or you can literally just drop a grid tablet and sketch something out really quickly.
Right.
And that's not something you can do on the fly in a digital environment.
Like you just cannot. Every encounter has to be planned out ahead of time.
What's this thing look like? Okay, here's my yellow tablet. I'm going to sketch it out for you really quickly.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, all of these were pre-designed, and like everyone had the encounters ready to go. The challenges actually were more of some of Roll20's features, like people were trying to do dynamic lighting for the first time.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the kind of thing where it's like just the digital overhead adds a ton of slowdown to a lot of things.
Yeah.
The more you can reduce the interaction with the engine, the faster your game goes.
There were a couple of cool things they had, like they had a condition. They had a like condition and combat maneuver token that you could click on, and it would send the rules for conditions and combat maneuvers to the chat, which I thought was nice because those are frequently things people ask about.
Yeah,
but
I mean, just making sure your character is set up is its own thing.
Oh, yeah, and that was definitely a challenge for me because I had never used the character vault, which is apparently the way you're supposed to do it in PFS. I mean, the other thing is that I'm probably a little bit more roleplay heavy than most Pathfinder Society members, and I'm not necessarily used to like, all right, this guy tells us to do something and we're just going to go do it. And so I kind of was like, I don't think this is a good idea at a couple points where I was definitely not supposed to say, I don't think this is a good idea.
Okay, so every time you say the words Pathfinder Society, I picture some Lovecraftian heroes in pith helmets.
No. I mean, this is like Living Greyhawk or Living Forgotten Realms type.
Yeah, Living City stuff.
But they were fun. The more fun I had was there were 2 games I did with people who were like either small RPG outlets that were trying to get their rule set more traction. There was one group that was very, very much milking any sort of 80s nostalgia or Stranger Things love you might have. And they had a character system in which there are the 5 character types that are the 5 character types from the Breakfast Club. It's the brain, the beauty, the criminal, the basket case,
and the jock.
Yeah. I don't have that much 80s nostalgia, but people who did seem to really like it. But I don't know. I played a criminal and we got troned, so we ended up inside of a video game. It was very 80s.
I was going to say, that sounds very 80s.
Like the entire game was set in an arcade.
Yep.
It's like, if you want to play a game that's very 80s and also lets you play as a Transformer, maybe, because it's very 80s, I would say this was Remember X is what it was called. I would say check it out. The other game...
I miss arcades.
The other game was a very like Star Wars meets Shadowrun with 5th edition rules as an underlying basis. And we were doing a like job where we were supposed to get in and do a crime and then get out. And as far as things go, I liked it a lot better than Shadowrun because it was 5th edition, and that means everything's a whole lot less lethal. Like, it turns out you can just do Shadowrun stuff, and you can play a Shadowrun game with a different system, and there's a lot less anxiety in there because you're less likely to get one shot.
What did you say this was again?
I will have to look this one up. This was very much like they did not have a book out yet.
Okay. I was wondering if it was Carbon 2185.
I think Shadowrun would be really fun as a storyteller game.
Yes.
Yes.
I was going to say 5th edition. Like 5th edition seems like a weird rule set for that sort of thing. Like if anything, I would want something less crunchy, like much less crunchy.
Well,
I don't know.
So from their perspective, they were like, you kind of want the crunch for like being able to figure out what happens on the run. Is kind of how I would state it. Like you want to have things be able to go bad, and then you have ways of like resolving the things have gone bad.
This is totally why I think I'm actually with Bell and Thalen. I think the storyteller system would be great for that.
I mean, because then you're just explaining what you're wanting to do, and you figure out a reasonable check for it.
Yeah, it adds a bunch of creativity where you can just be like, I'm going to solve this thing that just came up this way with the tools at hand. You probably need some like fast combat resolution, but like I think that's fine, and the storyteller system actually would let you do that, because it would be like, hey, 3 people are all doing 3 completely different things.
Now I kind of want to try and port Shadowrun to the storyteller system.
Yeah, you got me thinking about it now.
Because like I think it would work really well. Because like if you think about it, all of the classes in Shadowrun do a thing that you could translate over to the PIP system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they're all very unique, and they all do their own thing.
And you could blend them really well.
Yep.
Yeah, I have no idea which storyteller is like, so
You've played it.
It's
the
World of Darkness.
Darkness.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I could see that.
Yeah, mostly because when I think 5th Ed or any D&D system in general, I think combat heavy, and I think Shadowrun is the sort of game where you are wanting to avoid combat as much as possible, and that's something that you really need to retain for it to still feel like Shadowrun.
Yeah, like it needs to be as fun to get in combat as it is, or it has to be as fun to not get into combat as it is to get into combat, which is something that Shadowrun was generally pretty good at.
Yeah, because Shadowrun was like a very social game to me.
Yeah,
like I'm absolutely here for it being less lethal when you do end up in combat. Like that's great, but like avoiding combat should still be a thing you want to do, and that's definitely not something that I think of as remotely a priority for 5th edition.
Well, there's a lot of the World of Darkness games that already had a mechanic where some of your party can be in another dimension, basically.
Yeah. Well, and in the World of Darkness games, like mostly, I mean, apart from Werewolf, were tended to be very averse to combat, if anything.
Yeah, like the best combat were ones where everyone was in initiative, but your party is all doing different things, some of which may involve fighting.
I do think that I always felt it was a little weird that how bad of an idea it was to get into combat when so many of the like core character archetypes are people who are all about doing a fight.
It's true.
Like if you're actively trying to not get into combat, then like why do you bring the street samurai? Why do you have a street samurai? Yeah,
because Molly Millions. That's why. You blame William Gibson for that. But yes. Well, like, I feel like in the ideal Shadowrun game, you are trying to avoid combat for as long as possible, but sooner or later it becomes unavoidable, and that's when that character steps up.
Yeah, but that still means that you need to have like a combat system that exists that isn't going to murder anybody other than that character that looks the wrong way.
Yes.
Yeah, and which is why it's so important that encounters are multifaceted and not just everyone is fighting.
Right, and like I feel like the answer to that is, okay, I'll go downstairs and try and buy you time while you do whatever heisty nonsense you're going to do.
Yeah, ironically, it becomes really great to split the party.
Yeah, I mean, that's where ideally the non-combat oriented characters can still do whatever the thing is that they're good at and contribute, which is something that Shadowrun has historically had great difficulty making work. Like, I don't know that they've ever truly, really made decking work the way it should. Like, they've tried so many different ways.
5th Ed was way better than 4th.
Oh, it was. It was.
Having played a decker in both 4 and 5e.
I mean, in this game, it mostly worked out pretty well. Other than, like, the decking was mostly just you can cast spells or whatnot, and those spells can be specifically focused on messing with mechanical things.
See, that feels more like the technomage type thing that they added in later Shadowrun. I forget what they're called.
But yeah, it was fun. The other thing
Technomancer.
The other cool thing that I got to do was a couple of Zoom Larps, which were very enjoyable and probably the highlight of the show. One was an adapted LARP that they cut down the player count to make it work via Zoom. And the other was actually designed for Zoom. Like, it was a LARP designed to work on Zoom. And so the concept was you are all of these various characters who don't have very good memory of what's going on, and you're in a featureless white room and surrounded by a sigil that if you leave, you get shocked. So no one can touch anyone in this room, but you can all talk to each other. And then periodically people would get teleported to a different space, and they use Zoom breakout meeting rooms for those.
That really is the killer feature of Zoom. Like, having experienced a lot of remote meeting options lately, that's the thing that makes it really special.
It's funny, I had never used the breakout meeting rooms before this. But yeah, they seem cool. And like, afterwards on Saturday night, we did our traditional everyone gets together on Zoom and drinks with each other. And like, it was a fun party, and it was also like very bittersweet because these are all of these friends that I made at GenCon and only get to see at GenCon, and now I don't get to see them in person anymore. And that's the hardest part for me with the convention scene, is just it's a place for me to like meet new people and make new friends, and then every year I go back I get to see them again. Like, that's the one time I get to see them, and now you don't have that anymore, and that sucks.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are going through this right now in the World of Warcraft community with BlizzCon being canceled, because like for a lot of guilds that was their moment to meet up during the year.
Mm-hmm.
And Fanfare, which was the Sony equivalent, was kind of the same thing. Like, I know a lot of people that would have big guild events during that as well, and you know, it's like it's this weird year where nothing is quite working as intended.
Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. The other, like, doing it over Zoom. It's been hard. It's going to make me appreciate it once I get to do it again. But I do think the fact that a lot of these conventions have such a lower barrier to entry does mean that hopefully we get more people interested in them. Because, like, it was $20 for me to buy all of my event tickets for this GenCon Online.
I'll be honest, more people is not the thing that I felt like I was missing from conventions.
Yeah.
But if it makes it more accessible to people who wouldn't be able to get any part of that experience before, then I think that piece of the trade-off is good.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, like, you know, people for whom the travel and all of that was a non-starter in the past, well,
yeah,
that part's, you know, not a problem now.
Yep.
So,
for good or ill.
So this is kind of a side venture, but like we've talked about this before, all the, you know, these shows formerly known as E3 have been done online. And the problem that I found is like the first couple I was really interested in, and now the continued stream of them I am significantly less interested in, and I just like I'll read a blog that recaps it. I'm not going to watch it as it's actually happening. So like it was shiny and new for a little bit, and now it's just it's another Sony show, or it's another Microsoft show, or it's another Ubisoft show, which is different than like going to a convention that you're interacting with, but like that is another thing that has changed this year.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I did not go to any of the big like panel viewing things. I was all in stuff where it was anywhere from 5 to 15 people.
So that in itself probably seems considerably smaller scale than you're used to.
I mean, this was one of their things. They had apparently done a couple of LARPs online already, and their discovery was they tried to do it with 20 people, and that just doesn't work on Zoom. Like, you can't have 20 people trying to, like, cross-talk over each other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we weren't able to do any of the big, like, 50-person events. I don't know. I'm glad that I got to do a Gen Con. Even if it was
how it would end up.
Even if it was a weird Gen Con, at least I can still say that in 2020 I did a Gen Con. And I got to see most of the people, even if I didn't get to see them in person. But
did it give you the realization that, oh hey, these things exist all year round and we can, do this more often?
There's kind of that. I don't know how many things exist with the event structure of Gen Con, but I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for them.
Well, I just mean like, okay, so you say you have like these LARP friends that you meet up with at Gen Con, like it would probably be totally doable to do that more often over Zoom.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the free Zoom, if you're using the free Zoom, it's a little bit more restrictive because multi-person Zooms, you only get 40 minutes free. You have to have a paid Zoom account if you want to do longer than that.
I have no idea how like the video chat works with Discord because I know it's got video chat now. I don't know what restrictions it would have.
I don't know if it is very bad or what, but everybody who used Discord for voice did not use Discord for video.
Okay.
I don't know why that is.
But it's interesting. Certainly interesting.
It's an interesting data point.
Yeah. Well, like, I think Zoom is the only one that has the breakout session thing, so I don't know if that's something that was a feature that people felt like they needed. Because, like, we use Teams at work for everything except for when we need to have a meeting that needs to split apart and then get back together. But that sounds cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad I did it. I look forward to next year where we hope we're able to do it in person, but realistically probably not.
Yeah. Yep. So this week, Horizon Zero Dawn released on PC. In fact, yesterday, I think it's only been 24 hours.
Correct.
Like, it feels like I've played way more than 24 hours worth, but so I had been looking forward to replaying this game because previously I played the base game, and I think that was it a AggroChat Game Club game?
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so I played through the base game, but I never went back and played through the expansion. And I would have rather had a mouse and keyboard the entire time I was playing on the PlayStation 4. So I'm super happy to have it on the PC. And my God, does it feel like a different experience?
It really does. Holy cow.
So, like,
How so?
One of the things...
Aim assist with a mouse.
Aiming with a mouse versus...
Yep.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, it feels way better. So like bow combat just feels better because like I'm aiming with a mouse and life's grand. But more than that is the expansion added a lot more than I realized. Like, it makes wide sweeping changes to the entire game. Like, not the base recorded story portion, but like it makes the world feel more alive.
Yeah, it adds little vignettes, a lot more wandering people and mini events, and new skills that you can absolutely take from the very beginning, which are super helpful.
Nice.
Yeah, like there's basically what feels like cheater skills at the very beginning that greatly increase your drop chances of various things. So like I was fully kitted out in purple mods pretty early because anytime I took down something big, it tended to drop a purple.
And all those various animal parts that you need to upgrade all of your, storage space, you can make those drop way more consistently and have to kill a lot less innocent animals.
Yep.
Poor little raccoons.
Yeah, because like
I murdered so many raccoons.
That was the first one I took, was the one that influences like drop chance, and it was pretty rare that I took down a boar or a turkey or something like that, and it didn't drop at least a green. And oftentimes it's a blue.
Yep. Sometimes more than one. If you have some of the other skills in that tree, it starts getting silly, and it's really great because I can focus on actually playing the game and the story, and my annoyances with my inventory size are all gone.
That's nice.
Like one of them is just your inventory is 20% bigger, just permanently 20% bigger, that scales as you increase your bag space. So like that's really cool. Some other stuff that they added in is a bunch of things to help flesh out the mount system. So remember, you can so heads up, everyone in here, I think. Ammo, have you played this game?
No, not yet.
Okay, so we won't talk spoilers.
I would appreciate if you would avoid big ones, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so basically there's a way to get mounts temporarily in the game. But like it didn't really feel really fleshed out. And now there's a bunch of talents that allow you to do things like mounted combat and
mounted harvesting. Yeah,
like harvest stuff without getting off your mount. You can repair your mount. When you've got a pet, you can repair your pet now. Like little quality of life things that are kind of cool. The biggest, like the events feel kind of like Skyrim, where you're just roaming around the world and you encounter people out in the world. Like sometimes they're enemies, sometimes they're friendly people that need help. Other times it's just like the equivalent of the Fallout caravans. You'll just bump into a trader on a route. It's amazing how much more alive that makes the world feel.
Yeah, wandering NPCs go a long way.
And the other thing that I noticed is like, okay, so I am going back and playing this game, and I know how things work now. And it is amazing how much more powerful I feel. And it's not because like I have significantly better gear than I did last time. It's that I know how to fight each one of these things now. Like I know where to hit things for the maximum benefit. And I put this in the notes that precision is power, and it definitely feels that way in Horizon.
Yes.
Because I know how to knock out the parts of an encounter that are annoying.
And the mouse aiming makes it way easier and more fun to do so.
And like on a controller, I spent a lot of time avoiding larger encounters, and now I just take them down. Just go after them. Because like I feel like I have way more fluidity of combat with the mouse than I did with a controller. Like anytime I was using a bow with a controller, it just kind of felt bad.
Huh.
But like the things that were really the big bads that used to scare me in the when I was on the PlayStation really don't bother me too much. Like, Thunderjaw. Okay, sure, I'll take him out. It's fine. Like it'll take a few minutes, but I'll take him out. It's fine. Like I know how to dismantle the parts of that's an annoying encounter. Or like the Ravagers that have like guns on them. Okay, yeah, I'll just disable the gun. I've spec'd my bow into tear arrows so that I can dismantle parts of it.
The best kind of arrows.
And that seems like really tear arrows seem to be the answer to most things.
Yes,
this is so true.
Yes, always true.
That was always true though, right?
Yes,
right.
But now we know that going in. I mean, for me, it's also, I sort of messed around with all the skills when I was playing through it the first time, and now I know which ones I like. And, I mean, it's not that there's necessarily a difference in power level, although there is somewhat, but it's also, I know what playstyle I liked and worked for me, and now I can just target those things and not have to wait until later in the game to have them, and that's nice.
Yeah, I basically crit pathed my way down the aim time tree, and then I crit pathed my way down the silent strike options, and I'm being stealthy.
Wait. Silent strike? What? That doesn't sound like Bell.
Yeah. And that was a conversation that Tam and I had this week. Like, it's not that I don't like stealth. I've realized that. I just don't like stealth for stealth's sake. Because I made an attempt at playing Metal Gear Solid 5, which is a game where you never want to be seen, never ever want to be seen, never ever want to actually start combat. I just could not stand it. Like, for me though, like, I find I actually do use stealth quite a bit when I'm in a game with non-trivial combat encounters, but I use it to whittle things down so that I have dropped it from like 6 of a thing to 3 of a thing. So when it's finally go time, it is now manageable.
I realize you mostly bounce off of Souls-like, but you might try Sekiro.
I just think you should jump straight to Ghosts of Tsushima.
Yeah, after I finish with Horizon, it's probably the next thing I'm going to play is Ghosts of Tsushima.
So the other thing about playing Horizon on the PC is that it looks gorgeous.
It's true. It is so much better looking than I ever, like, I don't know. It's just gorgeous. So if you play the game, what it has as the normal setting is pretty close to a parody of what it looks like on a PlayStation 4 Pro. And the game by default auto-detected 4K and auto-detected high preset with a couple of them at very high. And I've just let it do its thing. Like, I mean, people have complained about having issues with the game crashing, so I mostly just let it auto-detect and went with it. And my God, the game is gorgeous. It's just unbelievably gorgeous. I posted a picture of dead crocs floating in a pond earlier. Because I thought it was pretty.
That is one thing that I really enjoyed about that game, and I'm enjoying about games more in general, is they're built to enjoy visually. And it's not just, the graphics are great, but like there's
the world is artistically pieced together in a beautiful way.
Well, and there's mechanisms within the game to help you enjoy it.
Right, here, go find this vista, and now you're standing on a high perch where you can see all kinds of gorgeous stuff around you and have bonus story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and photo mode. And like, I'm pretty sure I'm on record on this show of saying that I think photo mode is dumb, and I'm wrong. Past me is wrong. Photo mode is probably the most relevant innovation in this generation. And like, it's so simple, but it lets you do such cool things and also encourages you to absolutely enjoy the art. Because it's like, do you want to look around and see this place that you're in? Just hit the photo mode button, and then you can take a sweet picture and share it with your friends. Because I hadn't thought of how much how much photography makes the photographer look at the space around them. I was thinking of it just as like, what's the end result?
Yeah, I mean, you approach the world in a slightly different way if you're constantly looking for the next screenshot.
Right.
I mean, like, and that's kind of a thing that I've been doing for years. And I have like a ridiculous archive of photos thanks to the blog. And mostly I started doing it because like photos are a really good way to break up blocks of text. So I'm always looking for additional photos to post. So, okay, one thing that like I do not remember from the game, and someone can tell me if I just missed it, but like when Aloy is running and you stop, it takes a good minute for her to regain composure after running.
Yep, that was
I do
always
not
true.
I don't remember that from the game at all. And
She,
maybe I
like-
just
She sort of crouches down and starts hustling like forward, and then she like will stand back up and will shuffle to a stop.
oh, this is like she pants, like she's breathing hard,
Yeah.
like that
Catches
she's
her breath.
exerted.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It
I
was
don't
there.
remember that. And that's the problem is like so much time has passed and I'm playing in such higher fidelity that I'm not sure what has always been there and what is new with the expansion. Because like this expansion works a lot like, I don't know, like an Elder Scrolls expansion where it's blended into the world and you can like start it way earlier than you probably should. Because I think I've already received the quest starter to send me off into the new area.
What does have you done any of it?
No, because it specifically said this is it is higher level content than what I was at the time.
Yeah, because I was curious if it's like, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about the expansion.
Also, I don't remember the world being as snowy as it is now, and I don't know if that's a side effect of the expansion or what.
It's pretty snowy in the north.
But like it's snowing in the area around Meridian, and I most definitely don't remember that. The Grace, are you running into any issues with the game?
Not really. The only issue that I really had was that, so I bought it on the Epic Game Store, and so you couldn't preload it before it went live, so that was slightly painful yesterday. But mostly it was that the first time you run it, it has to figure itself out and configure itself, and that took a piece of time, and then it kept crashing until I updated my graphics driver, and then it had to run its diagnostic thing all over again. So I'm way behind where I thought I was going to be in terms of how much time I've been able to play because of having to wait both for the download and for that whole process. But but now that it's done, I haven't had any trouble with it.
I've had a couple crashes. Like it's not been a regular thing, but there's been a couple times. Like when I went to the first Cauldron, I got about halfway through and it crashed. But thankfully, Horizon is pretty prolific with game saves.
Yeah.
So like I only lost a couple minutes worth of time.
Well, I'm in there now, and I have not had any problems yet. I'm at the end of it, so hopefully I will not crash out in the middle of what's happening.
I think it has something to do with alt tabbing, because like based on the conversations that I have seen online, people seem to at least relate it to if they've alt tabbed a certain number of times it crashes. So I stopped doing that, and then I played for like 3 hours straight this afternoon without any issues. So, but right now it's got very mixed reviews on Steam because I mean there's people that have complained about various issues. But for me, it is mostly fine and it is really enjoyable. And definitely, if you have never played the game, then you should totally play the game.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Everybody
It's
should play
very
this
good.
game. It is one of my favorite games, and will probably be my game of the year for this year because it came out on a new platform this year.
See, I'm not the only person who does that.
I'm absolutely like putting Death Stranding on my list because, you know, it technically came out last year, but, you know, I played it this year and it was new to PC this year. So Ash, you have a series of things in a row, and I don't understand. Like, I understand the first word. That's it.
So in 2017, a game came out in the States called Gundam Versus, which was, as it turns out, a very stripped down version of an arcade series that's been around in Japan for a while. That game was not great. I bought it because at the time, we didn't get Gundam games here yet, so I bought that one anyway. Since 2017, Japanese companies seem to have realized that they can make their niche games and they can put them out on this side of the Pacific and sell them. So recently, we got a port of the arcade version of this, the actually good one, Gundam Ex Versus Maxiboost ON, because this is from the Street Fighter 2 school of naming.
Okay.
The Gundam Versus series is basically a arena fighting game designed to be played 2v2 using a variety of different Gundams and other mobile suits from the Gundam series to fight against each other. There's an interesting system where they aren't all balanced against each other, but you lose when your team has taken 6,000 points worth of damage. So, like, if you have a great suit, it might be 3,000 points, but that means you can only die once, and two deaths means you're done.
Yeah.
The lowest ones are 1,500, so you have a lot of extra lives if you go that route. But really, this just gives me the feel of old Virtual On games, which is not a thing I think I realized I've been missing, because the last Virtual On came out for the Dreamcast.
That's the last one I'm aware of.
That one got released on the 360, but even so,
Yeah.
that's still like 15 years ago.
It's the game I don't actually know the name of, and I call it Ontario Tangram.
I do too. I don't remember what the actual name is. I think it's
like
Oratorio or something.
Something, yeah. It's
But yeah,
the
this
game
is-
that I bought dual fight stick things for.
This is a game that is all about movement and maneuvering around the arena to try to do more damage to your opponent than they're doing to you. Execution is not terribly complicated. Like, combos are not much more complicated than press this button 3 times, or maybe hit them with a melee attack and then hit them with your charged up ranged attack. So the complicated part is all the boosting and the movement, which is, again, a lot like Virtual On was.
So it actually kind of sounds like the, I don't know, like it's reminding me of the mobile Gundam game, except for with like real controls. Did you ever play that?
Gundam Battle, Gundam Warfare, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, whatever that thing's called. Yeah,
That one reminded me more of Gundam Breaker than this,
yeah, true.
because this is not really very much like Gundam Breaker. Unlike the one that came out 3 years ago, this one has quite a bit more single-player content, so I'm enjoying it a lot more. The other one was online play or bust, and also online play is how you unlock anything you care about. This one does not have that problem. So I hope to end up playing a lot more of this.
I remember Armored Core had a lot of 1v1 PvE battles.
I thought Armored Core was mostly just an RPG.
Am I thinking of the right game? From Software?
Yeah, that was from Software.
Yeah, like there was a lot of the first one that they released on the PS2 is the one that I played the most, and there was like a ladder system that you could unlock stuff through, like dueling other NPCs, and you're like in an arena and you drop your mech the way that you spec'd out against some NPC, and you fight them, and if you win, you get unlocks and stuff like that.
I was confusing Armored Core with Front Mission.
Ah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Armored Core is just a mech pilot game, mostly, or at least the ones that I played. I don't know what happened post PS2.
I mean, the only thing that happened recently is the people that made this game made Daemon Ex Machina. A lot of the giant robot series seem to have just kind of fallen apart after the PS2 era.
Sadness.
I mean,
Giant robots.
I think there's a new Mech Warrior soon.
I absolutely bought a game that is not very good just because as a kid I always wanted it, but it never came out over here.
Oh.
I bought the Famicom game that's the Macross game, where it's mostly a shoot 'em up, but you can, for some reason, switch modes at will, but it doesn't actually really help you. It's not a good game, but I always wanted to own it, so I bought it now that I can actually play it.
I was wrong. Mech Warrior 5 came out last December. But yeah, this is getting my, since New Gundam Breaker was such a bust, this is getting my Gundam action game in.
I'm hoping they release another Gundam Breaker and it's good.
I'd settle for a release of 3.
Yeah, like an official one.
Yes, an official release.
I would really like to have it on the
here.
Switch.
I mean, it came out on the Vita, so probably that's possible,
Yeah. Gundam Breaker would be a great Switch game.
provided it's good.
Well, yeah.
Because that was the thing for the last Gundam Versus game. They developed a new one to try to appeal to the audience over here. It wasn't very good. So New Gundam Breaker was a similar story. They made a new one to try to appeal to the audience over here, and it wasn't good. So maybe they'll do the same with Gundam Breaker as they did with this, and just bring over one that's good.
Right. Like, maybe they should just stop doing that and just release the thing. I mean, especially since digital distribution, should probably be lower stakes?
I mean, yeah, we have, while it didn't release digitally here, that Gundam Tactics game did come out earlier this year. I guess it only came out in the US on Steam. It did not release digitally on the Switch.
Now, when you say Gundam Tactics, is that a tactics game, or is that still more of this Gundam-style mobile battle arena?
It is a tactics game featuring Gundams.
Okay.
Using the storylines from Gundam Wing, Gundam Seed, Iron-Blooded Orphans, and 00.
That's an eclectic mix.
Yeah, it is.
Do they somehow try and tie those storylines together?
No. But you can take... but you can earn suits from them, and you can take them into other storylines. But they don't actually try to tie the storylines together very well.
That's good, probably.
That's another one where the series has been around for a long time, and we're just finally getting games from it here.
I mean, I realize this is less true for this, but I kind of feel that way for Fire Emblem, too.
I mean, we just recently got Seiken Densetsu 3, aka Trials of Mana. And, what is it? The Saga series game that never came out over here. So, maybe people are realizing that it's okay to release old stuff. Maybe
one of the things about that had just been pointed out to me this past week is that there is no game that has ever sold more than 9 million copies in Japan. The original Pokemon Red and Green sold 8.3 million copies. There's just more market outside of Japan for some of these things, just because there are more people. It might be kind of niche, but...
We have a big niche. Our niche is large. And I think thanks to the internet, word of mouth just spreads easier within smaller communities. So, when a thing comes out that, somebody enjoys, it spreads around easily. I mean, because realistically, that's the only way people really find out about games. Because the advisement systems within all of the storefronts are horrible.
Discovery is hard.
It is.
I mean, there is a intense demand and a lot of very expensive thought going into how do you make Discovery actually good when we have so many things you could possibly be interested in.
And I still feel like at the end of the day, nothing quite beats, someone that you know or someone that you admire telling you a thing is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if you consider that, word of mouth is strong, but also if you have these really niche things, then you're mostly just getting people you already know telling you about stuff
things
you already
knew about.
Things you already would have known about.
Yeah.
And it's maybe you wouldn't have known about that specific thing, in which case word of mouth is great. But for something completely new that you would never have thought of on your own, it's not actually that great.
I guess that it also makes sense why companies are leaning so hard into influencer culture. Because if they can get their product in somebody's hands that already has an established following, then that can hopefully trickle its way through that community.
That's why everyone wants you playing their games, Bell.
Yep.
Playing their game.
And we've seen lately, though, how that's not foolproof.
No, it's not foolproof at all. So, segueing. Another thing that's happened since the last time I recorded a show is I have finished Death Stranding, and I am deeply emotionally connected to that game. And I didn't know, that was the first Kojima game I had ever played, so I didn't know if that was just a Death Stranding thing or a Kojima thing, which is why I attempted to play some Metal Gear Solid, and I'm realizing that now it was just a Death Stranding thing. It's a really good game. I found myself deeply connected to a lot of the characters. And I feel like I've talked about this at length before, but I feel like there is a certain aspect of that game that is playing on my emotions right now because of the situation that we find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm.
We're all disconnected in it, and it's a game about everyone being disconnected and connecting them back up. But a lot of the characters are really good. They're well written, even though they have dumb names.
Even Die Hard Man?
Die Hard Man. Actually, Die Hard Man became a very fleshed out character. For a long time, I did not like this character, but then more information came out. Like, the only thing that I have as a complaint is the narrative becomes very heavy-handed in the tail end of the game. And for the most part, for chapter 9 through 14, you were mostly just playing a bunch of cutscenes. Like, once you've gotten through chapter 9, the game is basically leaning towards a final conclusion. And I feel like they really should have thrown out one of those Final Fantasy XIV warnings. It's like, there's a lot of cutscene and there's no save points. Also, just kind of have to write it out.
Oof.
I mean, it's all really good. Like, I bawled at several times during this. Like, there's a lot of characters and interactions that hit me straight in the feels. But a lot of it feels like player choice is out the window because you're mostly just watching events. Like, the final act largely plays itself. The probably worst thing that the game has going for it is it creates a situation where in the final moments of the game, you have to cross all of the land area that you have crossed slowly throughout the game. Because basically you start on the East Coast and connect up the America as you go west. And then a situation happens that you have to go from the westernmost point that you have been to the easternmost point you have been to. I mean, in theory, it gives you a chance to go back through and tie up any loose ends. And it not so subtly tells you that basically you should do that thing. And when I say I beat the game, there's a lot of stuff that I could have done. Like, there's a lot of faffing around that could have happened in various sections of the game. But, like, I really enjoyed doing all of that stuff until I got to the mountain region. The mountain region broke me.
You mean the Rockies?
The Rockies, yeah. Or, you mean, it's nothing is exactly like it is in the world. Like, the game world is considerably smaller than the actual world that you would be put there. But, yeah, the segment that would be the Rockies. Moving around in the Rockies is a pain in the ass.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that broke a lot of people in real life.
Yeah, because snow timefall is worse than rain timefall, I'm pretty sure. So, like, once I exited the Rockies, I basically just crit pathed my way through the story to see the end. And also, I was trying to get through the game before Horizon Zero Dawn launched. It's a really friggin' good game. I am very impressed with the characters. There's a lot of characters that I really care about. All of the nonsense of the trailers makes sense in the end. I don't know what that says about me, that I understand it clearly now. It is very much a everything is explained in the end type experience. But yeah, like, it's characters have growth. Relationships are formed. Like, not BioWare, who did you choose type relationships, but like character growth relationships. It is an exceptionally good game, and I would highly suggest trying to play it. I wish there was a demo. Like, I really wish there was a demo, because there's some nonsense in this game that may get in the way of people's enjoyment.
This strikes me as the game, though, where if it had a demo, it would lead to fewer people playing it. Probably, yeah. Because, like, the act of being a porter is very well thought out, and it has a deep and meaningful physics engine, and you play Tetris with your cargo on your back. But, like, if you can do that, the game itself is really cool. But I have a feeling there's a lot of people that bounce just from the porter section
which never goes away. Like, you're always a porter all the way through the game. But, like, the mechanics of how to carry a ludicrous amount of stuff on your back that you shouldn't be carrying on your back and maintain being upright probably causes a lot of people to bounce. I found it interesting and, like, really entertaining, and I was super into the way that the world changed as I moved through it and was influenced by other players. I'm not sure how this game would feel if you didn't play at launch, and that's the only thing that concerns me. Because a lot of the novel revelations that I was having were because this world was being populated with players as I also went through it and was populating the world. My fear is there are going to be moments where, like, struggles that I had will just ultimately be trivialized because by the time somebody plays it 6 months from now, there's going to be a bridge every place.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the game does that. I do know there are certain areas of the game where quote-unquote online features didn't show up until I'd already completed a mission. So, like, I think it's trying to do some of that as you go through to where you're not getting to reap the benefits of everyone's built a bridge to everywhere until you've gotten to a certain point in that region. I don't know. Like, the logic behind what is online versus what stuff that's only for you has to be maddening, but it worked really interesting and it played out nicely. I still think Tam needs to play this game at some point. I'm really curious to hear Tam's take on it. Like, it's a very it's a very not me game, and I got super into it.
This is how I feel every time I have one of those game experiences that I'm like, my mind just mind blowing, and I'm like, who can I talk to about this? Who can I talk to about this? I know this feeling.
Sometimes it leads me to being in your apartment afterwards, yelling at you for making me play that game. I'm not sad I played the beginner's guide.
Oh my god, the beginner's guide. That game hit me in the feels. Not in a great way.
Yup.
Like, not in a horrible way either, but, like, that game depressed the shit out of me.
It was definitely a game we talked about, though.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah. Okay, so I think we maybe have time for this. So heads up, like, before the show, Tam carpet bombed our list of show topics, and there's just a lot of them. And to Tam's defense, he warned us that they were kind of just half-baked thoughts he was having. So this one is called The Rise of the Companion App. Tam, give us a setup.
So
I do have to ask before you even start. Was this inspired by Lancer or 40K or both?
It was inspired by a lot of things. So I was going to talk a bunch about 40K and its new edition in conjunction with this topic, but I'm not going to do that. Suffice it to say that Games Workshop has figured out how to make a good rule set and has continued to refine that rule set, but is terrified of the internet, like basically every physical games company, to their detriment. And I actually want to rewind all the way back to Infinity. Infinity is an incredibly Byzantine, arcane, complicated miniatures game that is 100% saved by the fact that its creators, the company that made it, believes with their whole heart in the power of the internet. And so it's got complex Byzantine rules that are all beautifully referenced and cross-referenced in a continually up-to-date wiki in 7 different languages. This wiki is linked to directly from their official list building tool, which is also a web app and is available on mobile devices. And so this incredibly complicated, inaccessible game is just suddenly becomes usable because everything is easy to reach and reference. And And it's interesting to me how much, because it's not just like I pick on Games Workshop, mostly because they recently released an app for 40K and it's incredibly hot garbage. But also that all of these companies are terrified of this. Like Wizards of the Coast only just barely recently figured out the internet as regards Magic, and even that's kind of questionable. Although Arena,
I'm sure they're glad they got as far as they did.
Yep.
The what?
Yeah.
Yeah, their timing is real good.
Yeah, I mean their timing is great.
Yeah, Arena's pretty great, and it's real important that they have that in their arsenal, or else they'd be in some serious trouble.
Yeah.
It'd be real much better if you can play, the majority of the formats that are playable on it.
Right, exactly.
It's true.
I mean, and that's the thing is it's like there's so much going on there, but it took them this long to get that product out. And like, let's be real, Magic Arena could have been made in 2005.
I mean, Wizards also doesn't really have a coherent online D&D option, do they?
I was going to say, no, they're still afraid of the internet as far as D&D is concerned.
Yep.
I mean, we talked about it earlier, but Roll20 really is the best in class if you want to look for a virtual tabletop experience.
Yeah, and it's inconceivable to me that like Wizards should absolutely dominate that space. There's basically no reason they shouldn't. But it's interesting to see these big companies being forced to start adopting companion apps and just like digital aids to play games with because other people have figured it out and have embraced it.
I mean, so if we want to talk about D&D and maybe Pathfinder 2, the APG was available for purchase as a Roll20 module and lets you drag and drop all of the rules into your character sheet, like as of I'm pretty sure it was there at launch.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like I fiddle around with, and it's a third party companion app, but there's plenty of, I mean, as far as I know, there's no official one, but there's several like third party apps that let me build characters in a nice, easy, digestible. I don't have to sit with a pen and paper on a like flipping through a book constantly. Like it's miserable.
Has dramatically improved my experience of building Pathfinder 2 characters.
Yeah, and it's like there's a million different. I mean, the user interfaces change with each app, and I have one that I particularly like just because of its structure. But it's got problems that I mean, all of them have.
They all have different
ups and
problems.
Downs. The what?
So they all have different problems. I like different
they all
ones
have different problems.
Yeah.
But they're all good enough that I'm happy to pay to use them. And like I get it costs money to develop an app and maintain it and so on, and I'm generally willing to pay that amount.
Yeah, but like, so they don't even have to go down that path. They could do what like a lot of video game publishers are doing and just publish an API and let other people build the app for them.
Yep.
Like World of Warcraft has a really good API that you can latch on and build third-party apps with. Bungie has an amazing API, and I would not ever play, like I would find it so hard to go play Destiny 2 right now without Destiny Item Manager, which is a thing that latches on to the API and extends functionality that like isn't really fleshed out in game through a web interface. Guild Wars 2 has a bunch of third-party sites that latch onto the API, like GW2 Efficiency, that like do really interesting things.
Yeah.
So like it is perfectly reasonable that if they don't want to mess with building the API themselves, just put your rule set in an API and charge a licensing fee for sites to access it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that a bunch of these games, that a bunch of these companies, I feel like are clinging to incorrectly, is that you've got to pay for rules. And like, I go back to Infinity. Infinity, honestly, shouldn't be a success.
Infinity's rules have been free since I've been aware of that game.
They've been free since the game launched. Like the only thing you get in the books are the only thing you get when you buy a book is additional story fluff, and the only thing you get when you buy a mini is the mini. There's no rules in the miniatures. They're not cramming their rules in weird places to force you to buy stuff. And as a result, this like tiny Spanish company has on multiple occasions had trouble actually maintaining its supply chain because there's so much demand for its product for a game that's like honestly really complicated and really hard to play and fiddly.
That's always been the problem with D&D is you have to have so many books.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want full access to all the things, like rolling your character involves traipsing across 5 books.
You need like 14 bookmarks.
Yeah.
You're never 100% sure if your character is valid. I mean, you can make pretty good guesses, but you're like, does this work with this? I don't know. Do I have a character that looks like it's perfectly fine but doesn't actually work at all? Who knows? And
I
like,
appreciate that 5e has decreased the ability to do that, but not made it impossible, certainly.
And it's interesting to me that like probably the best 5e character creator as far as breadth is D&D Beyond, and it's a really clunky character creator. And it doesn't make it fun to fiddle with characters because it's so clunky to deal with. Whereas the much, much, much more complicated and Byzantine Pathfinder 2 has a whole bunch of really helpful companion apps that propel a game that is incredibly inaccessible to one that's actually much more accessible in some ways than D&D, because all of the stuff you need to build a character is right there in front of you. So you can just instantly filter out all of the stuff that doesn't apply to you and just look at the thing that matters right now. And I'm starting to see stuff like companion apps for board games that offer like another dimension to the experience, whether that's ambiance, whether that's a rules adjudicator in the background.
One of my big success stories from first edition to second edition is Mansions of Madness, which solved that by taking the DM style player and just replacing it with a companion app.
Yeah.
Which I thought was brilliant because the GM style experience led to very uneven experience for the players. And not necessarily a really fun experience for the GM either.
Yeah, I mean, because you're basically just a glorified deck manager.
Yeah, and if you're like trying to play the game yourself as a GM, you are probably making the game miserable for everyone else.
Yeah.
Because that game was not balanced around a competitive GM.
And neither is D&D.
Well, neither is D&D, but D&D, a lot of D&D is the creative component to it. Whereas, the GM gets to be sort of the owner of all things not contained within the player characters. And they get to have a whole breadth of creativity there that they get to express. And that's sort of the fun of being a GM.
Yeah, you're sort of a tour guide. But it's been interesting looking at games, and it's really interesting. And Lancer was one of the other ones that I've been thinking about, where having a free app that has like your game rules, and especially like character creation or list building or whatever the fundamental creative component is to your game, having that in an app form that anybody can pick up is such a great way to get people into your game. Because in the case of Lancer, it's like, I think Lancer looks really neat because I like mecha, but there's 5 or 6 different mecha RPGs I could look at if I was really excited about a mecha RPG. And the thing that sets Lancer apart is, I can fiddle around with characters in an app, and I can take 10 minutes to do it rather than internalizing an entire book.
I'm sure there's some app to help you create Battletech mechs by this point.
Maybe.
Great. Now I need to confirm that statement. I'll be back next year.
I mean, you would think so, but I don't know.
I don't know. And if I find one, because I know it's not official, I have no idea if it's supported. I don't know what books it manages. I mean, even making like magic decks, even like making commander decks, I can kind of sort of put together a deck and then export it such that I can go buy it to play it. But that's a clunky process, and none of those builders have good filters on them.
Yeah.
Like, you have to know what deck you're making before you go looking at cards.
Scryfall has permanently been building a deck manager, and I am getting sick of them still having that in development.
Yeah.
Because I really want to be deck building out of Scryfall, which is the best way for me to search for magic cards.
Scryfall is just hands down the best magic site.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean, I wish
you know
they
what
had,
you're looking for.
I wish they had better search tools and not arcane syntax, but
they've got really good search tools pending you know the syntax.
Yeah, I mean, they have a great search engine. They just need a usability layer on it.
They have one. It's just not obvious.
Do you mean the page where they explain their syntax to you?
No, they've got.
No, I mean the page where you can like select things and they will automatically put the syntax for you in there.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, the advanced search, where they have all of their, well, not all.
It's definitely not all of it,
but a lot of their options are exposed as a UI element.
Like, I don't know. The one that I remember messing with the most is Army Builder, which was, I don't know. It was a physical Windows client that you installed, and I think it came out in the 90s, and that's when we started using it. And the problem is it had a very wink wink nudge nudge relationship with the files that you needed to run it with, to where you would buy the software from, I think it was Lone Wolf was the name of the company.
Still around.
And
they're still around.
There would be an arcane forum link that would take you somewhere else with plausible deniability where you could download all of the rules you needed to build an army list in Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Fantasy. And that was the only way that army list building was not just nonsense.
Yeah. And then they hired a bunch of lawyers. They went for a few years where they got official licensing for a bunch of stuff and then litigated the shit out of everybody else. Were an absolute nightmare in the minis gaming community for a long time, to the point where like a bunch of people didn't use their products, mostly in protest, and because better stuff started becoming available.
I was gonna say Battlescribe does exist now, even though I cannot stand the UI for that product.
I mean, Battlescribe exists because Army Builder was being litigious, basically. P.S. Battlescribe has a better UI than Army Builder.
Oh, yeah, that makes me sad.
Oh yeah, the only good UI I've seen in a minis building app is the Infinity one.
Well, they made some dumb decisions with their licensing as well, because if I remember, like when I bought my copy, it was like a lifetime license, and you could just upgrade indefinitely.
Yeah,
and I think it was like $20 for the initial license.
I mean, I'm actually using their Pathfinder 2 character builder, and frankly, it's my favorite one of the ones I've seen. It's responsive, it's got a good UI, it's got all of the options.
Yeah, they make Hero Lab.
Yeah, they do Hero Lab.
Okay. Yeah, like the main reason why I remember using it is it had the... God, I don't even remember the name of the magazine, but not White Dwarf. The other Warhammer magazine that was published by Lack whatever press that sometimes also had rules in it, but was like a little digest-sized magazine and was black and white. And in one of those, they released the vehicle builder rules. So say you want to kit bash your own vehicle together. Okay, here's the rules on how to make a Warhammer 40k vehicle. If you want tracks, okay, well, this is what you do for tracks. If you want a plas cannon, these are the rules for a plas cannon. And they had, in Army Builder, they had all that stuff built together to where, like, you just created your own vehicle on the fly. Also, weird side note, have you paid attention to the price of Rogue Trader? like the original rules for 40K.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's astronomical right now.
It's now going for like $150+.
Wow.
What?
For like a paperback version of the first edition rules. I don't know why. I think I paid $5 for the version that I currently have because something happened to my original one at some point. Stuff is crazy. So this is not the topic that I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be talking about games with companion apps and how they really don't know what the hell they're doing with them.
Well, and sometimes they don't. Like,
it's like video games don't know what to do
going back to that
companion
40K
apps.
app, I was talking about how it was hot garbage. So, all right. Bear in mind, Games Workshop supports 2 different apps, one of which is for their fantasy game and one of which is for 40K. The fantasy game one has all of the rules for all of the units in it for free. You can pay like $1 a month for their list building tool, which is decent. It's not amazing, but it's better than most things out there.
I'll say it's better than Battlescribe most of the time.
Yeah. And you can also buy copies of the books for the game and use their questionable but passable e-reader in the app for the various like faction books. And this is fine. Like, for $1 a month, I'm not sad about it. But its development for it is on hold while they work on the 40K app. The 40K app is just shocking. When it first released, you could buy it for $5, I think. And what it contained was a Google Docs link to the rulebook.
That's awesome.
And I think also a $5 a month subscription that they would like you to pay for access to unit rules and codexes. And when you subscribe, you get access to all of the existing codexes, but when they release new ones, you'll have to buy those on the app. So you get less over time.
They've had different approaches to whether or not they should make the rules for their games free regarding their fantasy game and 40K, and the apps reflect this. Unfortunately, they don't. If you look up any given Age of Sigmar unit, you can get all of its unit rules for free on their website.
Yeah.
This is not true for 40K. What you can't get is army rules. Those are only still in books.
They've had really confusing decisions as far as it comes to rules over the years. I remember when 3rd edition came out, it was, I think, $10 more to buy the complete box set that had 2 units of Space Marines and a command unit. And God, I don't remember what we were fighting against back in the 3rd edition days. But whatever the enemy faction we were fighting against was, the equivalent, amount of miniatures and the rule book versus just the rule book by itself. Like, it made no sense not to just buy the box, because you got like well more than like $10 worth of miniatures.
Yeah. Well,
I want to say it was like, I want to say the book was $75 and the box was $85.
Yeah.
That had the same book in it.
And their boxes are more expensive now, but they have maintained buying the starter box is far and away the best possible choice you could make.
Maybe just sell miniatures, give the rules away, have the rules online, and they can be evergreen.
And then you don't have to, then you can patch them conveniently and on an as-needed basis. But like, nickel and diming people for rule books just to keep their game up to date and then forcing them to rely on 5 or 6 books to play the game is really frustrating. And you can solve this with an app. It's like Switch games. I want an app for everything.
Yeah. And sometimes even when there is a companion app, it doesn't actually do the thing that I think would be handy. Like, Magic has a companion app, and it has a bunch of stuff in it. It has, like, the ability to run tournament brackets and, the ability, like, if you actually care about playing legitimately, to track your games and stuff like that. It's mostly geared towards people who are going into a store to play. But The thing that always seemed like it would be very useful to have in an app form is a pocket judge. Just the rules of the game in an easy, searchable format that allows you to ask questions of how does banding work again? Not that banding uses anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the part that an app would be useful for me. Like,
I am responsible for banding still being involved in our Commander games.
But like, you know, what are the banned cards? What's the restricted list? You know, all the little errata things that are on the website that, you know, you may not have handy when you're like playing at a coffee shop with somebody. Have that in an app form. I mean, it's all on Gatherer, but like that website's not very mobile friendly.
Gatherer makes me mad.
Yeah, and I feel like if you had these companies actually embracing the internet, these are the kinds of innovations you would get. It's like, oh hey, Pocket Judge, like great. Better search in your rules so you can ask a question and it'll surface all the relevant rules and put them all together. It's like, hey, well, you can just take a bunch of snippets of rules, like how do these 3 abilities work? It's like, okay, just put them all together.
Better yet, like I have apps on my phone for scanning cards in for price checking them. Just scan the card and it tells you all the things that you might need to know about it.
Yep.
I feel like part of the reason why Magic Arena doesn't support older formats is because they haven't figured out how to code all of the rules interactions in.
It's true, and I thought Pioneer was them building a modern that could be on Arena, but that's not come to fruition yet.
Historic is the modern that's on Arena now. And it gets a decent amount of play because it's on Arena.
But what was the point of creating Pioneer?
They're introducing older cards very piecemeal into Historic.
Yeah. And maybe at some point Pioneer and Historic will blend together.
I think there are already cards in Historic that aren't in Pioneer.
What?
What
was Pioneer even for?
I don't know. Like, I think Pioneer... I really think Pioneer exists as a way of bolstering the price of old singles and bringing value to the kinds of stuff they really want to reprint in the Masters collections rather than the things that the players actually are asking for.
I mean, Double Masters or whatever it is basically every single card you could want for Commander in a single set.
It's true. Double Masters is nonsense. Double Masters is also a lot of money.
Yes, well, those things may go together.
I mean, thankfully, they printed a lot of the cards that you would want in Battle Bond, and those are the cheapest version of the cards.
Yeah, but I didn't open a Battle Bond doubling season. I did open a Battle Bond land tax, though.
Battle Bond was really Commander Masters.
It was.
Battle Bond was a lot of fun things.
It was also fun to actually play. I'd never really done Two-Headed Giant before that set.
Yeah, it kind of makes me want to try Two-Headed Giant stuff more. Especially because Battle Bond had a bunch of features that was all about Two-Headed Giant and like figuring out ways to do big setup plays with your partner.
At this point, I think we've probably gone well over time.
Yeah, we have. I mean, I guess it's payback for not having a show last week. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Play Crosscode.